Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Reasons for Decline of Muslims. By Allama Ghulam Ahmed Parwez. Part 2. From the foregoing explanations, this fact has come before us that according to the Quran, one group is that whose present is successful and prosperous, whereas their future will be dark. Then there is the other group, the second group, whose present as well as the future is bright and prosperous. The third group is one whose present and future are both dark. To him, there is no such group whose present is obscure and dark but whose future is bright. He says, whosoever's present is dark, then their future has to be and must be dark. 1772. 1. Who is blind here, will be blind there. This is just not possible that one whose worldly life is spent in disgrace and disrepute will have his hereafter set right and streamlined. Those who say so wish to formulate two different laws, each to develop the present and the future. This is shirk. This is not Iman in the unity of God. The life of the Mu'mineen in this world will be that of authority and power, eminence and exaltation. If their present life is not so, then their life in the hereafter will not be so as well. It can so happen that a people could avail the wealth and government in this world, but its future could well be in ruin and destruction. But this can never happen, that a people's present life is that of disgrace and humiliation, but its hereafter is luminous, glittering, prosperous and affluent. The truth is, to tomorrow's sadness, eminence or exaltation, they have no claim or the right. Who endures not the tormenting pains of igniting his self for the enlightenment of today, those are the people unworthy of the tumultuous joys of the life to come. At this point, it is important to understand that if there be a decline due to an emergency is another matter. But to sit down complacently and say it matters not if we are not honored or have no authority in this world. For the simple reason it is we alone who are entitled to paradise eventually, then they are mistaken. Disintegration of life. Quran witnessed at its very inception that worldwide human life had badly shredded itself in its length and breadth. In the direction of length, it has conceived and made imaginary divisions of this world and the hereafter. This world is endowed to the members of the government who are claimant towards making it a bearer place to live in, while the hereafter came in the grasp of the reverend custodians of religion who claim to set right the hereafter on behalf of the populace of the world. When its attention turned to the breadth, it says every individual regards himself/herself as a different embodiment in quality of life, and if for some worldly reasons or necessity, some of humankind were gathered in one place, namely, tribe, nation-state, then they were only occupied with their own personal gains. Universal human gain was not in their view. This was the state of affairs of the world at the time of Quranic revelation, a state of affairs, which it has described as 41. Mischief and disorder in every corner of the earth. A universal chaos. In its wide-ranging meaning it is interpreted as shirk. This sort of division of humankind is against facts. Human life is an indivisible unit. It could not be divided lengthwise or breadthwise. Towards length, it is an endless flow forward, moving, from this world, continuously towards Akhirath, the hereafter. Therefore, the distinction between the world and hereafter is against facts. When these are the factual state of affairs, then to follow laws of those in power in the present, and to follow in the hereafter the rulings, principles, or laws of the religious leaders is indeed unsound. On the other hand, various individuals are characterized by one living body. Just as a single electric current can electrify many lights, bulbs, fans, machinery, etc. Likewise, the division of the individuals, races, tribes, and peoples is also unnatural. What is deen? Entire humankind is but one family. Leaves of the same tree and drops of one ocean with one unified base. This was the great and magnificent divine truth. i.e. unity from the Creator to the unity of the created and the conception of the unity of law, which Quran has placed before the world, and us. It has not only shown this fact by way of a single viewpoint but also how it will be demonstrated, as to how this unity of life works in human culture and in his economic program. This practical way through which this high-ranking fact will emerge in an embodiment of living form, will be called deen. Therefore, deen was the name of the practical act of life with which on the one side, the present and the future, dunya and akhirath, became one undivided, unclassified and uncategorized unity. While on the other hand, individual human beings joined together into one single, universal brotherhood likened to the constituents like the drops of water in the ocean. These conceptual truths were to materialize in form and take a practical shape as a way of life called al-Din. The distinctive feature of Din's order was, or be it said that it was the natural result or outcome, that entire control be snatched from the hands of humans and given into the hands of that law which was in its true essence not man-made or devised by man. It was actually received from the fountainhead of guidance, called Allah. In this order athoth, obedience, is only to the laws in which a human is neither like a slave nor under duress, but in a way that humans after considering these laws carefully come to the conclusion that indeed they were the only laws which would make their worldly as well as the life in the hereafter beautiful, glorious and splendidly happy. And whence only with the faculties of his mind and heart fully agreeing, begin to act on them. Athoth means such restrictions or restraints which man imposes on himself willingly. In this manner, in the order of Deen, power does not rest with any one of in one's hands, hence the disharmonies will become extinct from society and from human life itself. The members of this order and all living within its organizational boundaries would have had but one ideal, i.e., the pleasantness, wholesomeness, happiness, and prosperity of the future. And also, the development, upbringing, of the entire humankind, with the natural result that their present by itself brightens up. Because, as we have seen in the foregoing pages, it is the nature's unshakable law that one whose future is bright, his present must be brilliant and refulgent. Note, with what details has the Quran expressed this law? 40. 51. We make the present life of our Rasuls and the party or organization of Mu'mineen also successful, and so also their future life, when results themselves will stand out to declare or proclaim this. It is not that this help has come into action accidentally or haphazardly. Instead, it is declared. 30. 47. It is incumbent on us that we help the Mu'mineen. Do consider, how and in what details the laws of Allah are all-embracing and its governing authority so clear-cut. In another place, while addressing this group of Mu'mineen, it says, 41. 31. In the worldly life and the hereafter, in both conditions, we are your patron and supporter. Quran has said it is correct that in this order which is responsible for the gains, happiness, and refulgence, in the beginning hard work and toil is involved, and the result may not be in sight. As against this, the believers of the immediate gains with little or no effort see perceptible results before them. But do not fear, the seekers of immediate gains will never be able to overcome or overpower you. 4. 141. This can never happen, that God's law will let the seekers of only immediate gains have power over those who have Iman, conviction, in the hereafter. Those with the immediately gained piles before them must not think that they are ahead or in the forefront in the race of life, and those who have kept the future before them have lagged behind. This is their wrong supposition. The farmer who has sown his seed can never be a failure as against the one who has grounded his seed and made bread. 8. 59. The believers of immediate gains should never suppose or think that they have outgained. Definitely not, because they can never have the upper hand or superiority over the other group. 7. 128. Ultimately the power will go to those who abide by the laws of God. The kuffar, the seekers of immediate gains, let alone gaining power over the mu'mineen, they can never even reach up to them, or be at their level. 32. 18. What? Can a Momin and a Fasik, one who deforms, be the same or become alike? This can never happen. These two can never be equal or alike. Once again clarified is this fact that never should it be visualized that in the worldly life, Kufar and the Fasik would have remained ahead, and that the power of the Mominin would be only in the hereafter. The Quran has totally clarified that power and domination would be acquired in this world as well. 38. 28. What? Do you think or understand that we in this world will make them who have Iman and those who have done constructive and positive works equal to those who have been rebellious? Will we make them equal to those who have created harmony in the present and the hereafter with Fujajar? Those who make distinctions or divisions in these two. The truth is that the natural result of Iman in the hereafter is farsightedness. Consequently, those who do not have the faculty to think ahead cannot contest a people who are prudent and farsighted. Party of the Mominin. All these Quranic claims or the laws of the divine are the living proof before the world because of their results. What can the hereafter of another people be as proper as that of the party or organization, which Quran has called the Mominin, and can there be any other organization or group whose world is more successful than the group or organization of the Mominin whose government was established on this earth? 24. 55. They had harmonized their efforts with the laws of Allah. 5. 119. And Allah's praiseworthy and revolutionary laws and its might had become harmonized with their endeavors. 5. 119. The result is before the world. What the very first party that claimed to be Islamic managed to achieve was not merely an accident or an incidental chance. But what actually happened was according to the law of nature's firm and unshakable result. Just like in any scientific laboratory where chemical analysis and synthesis is carried out, then in accordance with scientific principles, the determined results occur. Likewise, power in the land, in a group or organizational life of men in harmony or concord with the divine laws will also create firm and unalterable results. These firm and unalterable results are called authority on the earth, wherein human life receives in full the exact balance, and which is why in them beauty and proportion alone are reflected. In it, in length and breadth, life had established its unity. Neither the hereafter was separate from the world, nor was humanity divided into bits and pieces. These Mominin had, in accordance with the conditions of their times, subdued nature and brought under their control the scattered powers of the universe. These subdued and harnessed powers and resources of the earth were distributed in accordance with the divine laws. Permanent values. This is Deen. That is, for the exploitation of all this wealth and riches. Every individual had to work to his maximum capacity and the output so distributed that each individual had equal opportunities to fully develop his potentialities. This is the Quranic system of Rabi'a Bay'ath, the system of development and nourishment. Meaning, the uniform delivering of all the basic necessities of the individual, and the development of his latent potentials, so that both their present and the future life becomes bright. This then was Deen, wherein was no monarchical despotism, nor the hegemony and leadership of priesthood, nor divisions into classes, nor the disharmonies in the life, nor was dunya separate from the akhirath, nor was the present distinct from the future. After that, now, turn over a page in history, and see a strange show. The people were the same, and in their hands was the Quran, the same Quran. But now there was that mighty and despotic monarchy on the throne with all its conquering powers. And on the other end of the spectrum, there was yet again priesthood, in full and complete authority, glorified in sanctity, in pomp, and resplendent in holy robes, overcast on the people, drunk and intoxicated. As could well be predicted, the people were divided into classes. At every step was that disharmony, the natural outcome of a capitalist society. At this point, there arises the natural question as to what had happened to that order, the bearer of surety, the guarantor of the development of humankind, and why it did not progress continuously onwards. After a period of time, why did the same unnatural and ancient system take over? I have on innumerable occasions given its reply and therefore need not go into its details. At present, only consider whether the order hinted to above or in the preceding pages could meet the demands and import unities of life and could withstand its surety for its fulfillment, or not. If you, however, accept the system's sufficiency as an answer, then for the moment do not enter into this argument as to why it did not remain firm and unalterable. What should be considered, is that if that order were to be established once again, will humankind yet again begin to glitter and shine? Anyway, at this moment in time I am addressing the readers who are Muslims and who would surely accept that there are capabilities in this order to eradicate and wipe out from human governments and other similar groups all the disharmonies and replace them with balanced and harmonious paths to tread on, securely and safely. Instead of getting entangled as to why the system did not move forward. It would prove constructive and worthwhile if we are to consider the present state of degradation, dishonor, humiliation, and poverty of the Muslims today, find out the causes, and the possibilities of their reformation. In any case, you had already seen where there was not a trace of monarchy nor did anyone know as to what was meant by religious priesthood. We now have reached that point in history where monarchy as well as priesthood is rampant. It is a fact that monarchy and priesthood are two inseparable things. From the view of Deen we have seen life is a continuous flow unaffected by death, but continues on into the hereafter. Therefore, the present and the future, this world and the hereafter, are also inseparable and do not differ from each other. There is only one law, which comprehends the entire human life, knowing no divisions or classifications. By monarchy is meant that for the worldly affairs the source of laws should be conceived separately. When, although you accept the concept of the present and the future, yet devise separate laws for the management of the affairs of state, then certainly and assuredly you will find the need to have a separate order for the hereafter. Such an order would only be for the hereafter and would not be related in any way to the worldly affairs is called religion. Thus, monarchy and religion, after the breakdown of unity of life, come into two inseparable entities. This is like a drop of water which when analyzed breaks into oxygen and hydrogen. At this juncture do try to carefully understand as to in what terms and meanings I have used the word religion, and what connotes Deen. It is the express purpose of religion to separate this world the hereafter, i.e. the life of dunya be separated from the life of akhirah. The affairs of the world were entrusted to the politicians while the hereafter to the priests. The world of God is separate, so also is Caesar's, the government levies its own taxes and the priests their own. From the Quranic point of view, monarchy does not merely mean that the son becomes an heir to the crown after his father's death. To it, monarchy is the name of any system wherein the state affairs are governed by laws other than the source of all laws, the Quran, may it take the shape of monarchy, democracy or despotism or theocracy. In the order of Deen, which is a separate topic, the conception of heritage of power is totally false and spurious, because since no man has any power at all, then how can there be a heritage? In fact, there is no such word as madhab, religion, in the entire Quran, and therefore it is un-Quranic. In the entire Quran the word Deen is used, for the simple reason that it revealed and introduced Deen. The word religion was created when the order of Deen became untraceable. In any case, in my writings wherever the word religion is used it would be religion only. I term and call Islam as Deen because religion, or Madhab Quran has termed it Deen and not connotes the other worldliness. Revenues. It is an offense to go against the laws of the state, and it would be regarded as a crime and sin if you go against the rules of the priests, i.e. against the laws of Sharia. Punishment of the offense of the state would be meted out in this world, while for the Sharia in the next world. Likewise, the rewards of the pleasure by the worldly rulers would be bestowed in this world, while that of Allah's pleasure would be rewarded in paradise. This then is the conception of life as expressed by religion. In contrast, Islam's concept of life is deen as enunciated by the Quran. In the forthcoming pages where the words religion and deen occur, then the aforesaid meanings should be kept in mind so that you will find no difficulty in understanding the pages that will follow, and thus avoid making any mistakes. Now, let's move ahead. Religion and politics. If religion and politics, the affairs of this world and the affairs of the hereafter become one, and both remain within the laws of Allah, it transforms into deen. This means that the separate identity of the two is removed. No wonder that a secular state considers it necessary to retain religion, and religion needs the state for its own survival. In this way, between them, despite visible inconsistencies, takes place a mutual understanding, kashutrati. The ruling class gives the Brahmin, the priest, raksa, protection, and Brahmin prays for Ashirbad, the kashutrati. Similarly, from the mimbar or the pulpit rises the sound of Zilayullah. The sovereign is the shadow of God on earth, or the monarch is declared as Ayadahullahu Bainisrahi. And in return, the crown entrusts the estates and makes endowments of perpetually rent-free grants to the masajid and maktabs, mosques and religious schools, to safeguard religious leadership. While religion, as return of debts of kindness, for monarchical solidarity and stability, creates in people's hearts, in depth, the deception that the world is fit and worthy of hatred and detestation, and keeps up this theme relentlessly. Politics and government, it preaches, is for this mundane world. The pious and the God-worshipping people should stay afar from the worldly people and their affairs. The aims of the pious and their ultimate goal is the salvation in the hereafter. The more a person is detested, disgraced, and debased, the more trusted and favored he is in the eyes of God, and so on and so forth. By this enchantment, the attention of the people is firmly and expressly directed towards the hereafter, thus giving monarchy the free rein in its profiteering. There remains for the monarchy no fear of any kind from any source. Religion so persuades and instructs the people in the exercise of saber, patience, that is not even to move a lip against oppression and tyranny, and this is done with such persuasiveness that they begin to regard every oppression as a mercy of God. Before them is sketched the portrait of Allah's favored ones, whose poverty and a state of self-ruination are the signs of such favorites. In this way, religion casts its magical spell and thereby continues to solidify the roots of the monarchy. In ancient times, religion need not have to plot its frauds and intrigues with much shyness and cunning. There was of course no need to think deeply to huckster a plot or scheme. Since codes of deen, which were passed through his messengers, did not remain safe, it was very easy for the religious authority to add or include in it anything they desired and state it to be from Allah's Sharia. 2. 79. But in the matter of Islam the position was different. Here, deens, codes, Quran, were available in its original version, and Allah himself has taken the responsibility of its safeguarding. Therefore, now religion had to make special efforts before it could cast its charms and incantations. In these prevailing circumstances, objective could only be achieved when the codes of deen, Quran, and its order and fundamentals are allowed to remain as they are. But their aims and objects together with their connotations are changed. Consequently, for this purpose, religion widely propagated this belief that in the words of the Quran there were blessings, abundance, and prosperity. Not in their meanings but in words. They should simply be recited repeatedly. This is called Tilawati Quran, meaning the words should be recited repeatedly without understanding its meaning. Whereas the meaning of tilawat in itself implies to follow someone or to devote. With this one change how successful religion has become. The code of deen, Quran, remained before the Muslims, and yet they were also separated away from the Quran. Religion has shown such deceptively alluring visions in the sawab attained by the recitation of the Quran, that the people fell foul and remain to this very day. Although, in this very Quran it is said of a group. 3. 167. They, with their tongue, say all that which is not in their hearts. The ruses and tricks of religion. Repeating words without understanding is akin to a man who says those things with his tongue which have no meaning or sense in his heart. Likewise, by only repeating the words without understanding them does not serve the aim and object of the Quran. God has at every step in the Quran stressed and emphasized the need to think and contemplate. It is therefore quite evident that if Quran is to be read without understanding its meaning, then what else will be there in it to think and contemplate? The Quranic words have been safeguarded for the reason that their meaning be understood, so that life be led accordingly. When this belief is inculcated that it is not necessary to understand the Quran because mere repetition of the words is enough for sawab, then the question of acting upon it does not arise at all. Furthermore, it is to be noted that through various commentaries, all those Quranic terms, expressions, and phraseology that Deen has used to express or explain its order now begin to take up or wear new meanings, so that all talk is related to the hereafter, and in the eyes of the people Deen became a thing worthy of hatred and aversion. Deeds, rewards, and punishments. Constructive and beautiful actions, evil deeds and losses. Respect, dignity and honor, triumph and disgrace, all this put together was lifted and piled up for the hereafter. Next in line were those principles and fundamentals of Deen which it had suggested for the establishment of its order: Kulma, Salath, Siyam, Zakat, and Hajj. All these were the means for the establishment and solidarity of Deen. Religion turned them into rites and rituals, i.e. these acts which were means towards achieving certain ends, their ritual performance become ends in themselves. Those people in whose minds runs the thought as to what would be achieved by reciting the words of the Quran in this manner and by performing these rituals, it was stated for their satisfaction that sawab would be achieved in the hereafter. The ambiguous way the word sawab is used in religion, it leaves no correct connotation in mind. Where something could not be explained, it would be just said that with it you would got sawab. When you ask the user of this word if he could explain its meaning in his mother tongue, since it is an Arabic word, you will find that he will not be able to proceed any further, because the entire system of sawab is based on vagueness. The meaning of the word sawab is cloaked in ambiguity. From it, therefore, no concrete fact or clear and lucid result comes before us. The entire structure of Deen is based and raised on the right conception of God. The Quran has given a right, exalted, free and absolute conception of God, which goes to illuminate each and every portion of man's life. But, in the times which have been so far referred to above, its place was taken by one as conceived by man, a man-made God. Under this conception it is stated that God, heaven forbid, is a despotic ruler sitting in the skies and wanting us worship him, while Deen wanted us to establish a society in accordance with divine laws only. This is Allah's ibadat, meaning, obedience to God's laws, living a life according to God's laws, at every step keeping in mind whether it is in accordance with his laws. By this, man would be performing ibadat 24 hours of the day. There is no doubt that Islam has a code of program as Siyam, fast, Salath, namaz, prayers, and Hajj, all of them fixed and defined for the establishment and solidarity of its order. The aim and objective of these congregations is that the individuals of this millet, Muslim brotherhood, keeping within the light of the laws of Allah, consider their collective problems and the felicity and najat, sense of fulfillment and realization of humankind, and the path through which these may be achieved. When man thinks and contemplates on the grandeur and greatness of these divine laws, then his head by itself bows down to his majesty and exaltedness, in emotion of respect. The bowing and prostration in the performance of Salat, i.e. the Raku, and Sujud, is the demonstration of this very respect in perceptual forms, and this is also a part of ibadat of the laws of Allah. But if in these congregations These basics do not remain, and simply the performance of some rites and its observance is taken to be its aim, then it is not ibadat anymore, but will be merely worship. I have used this word worship in this very connotation. The people saw the tyranny of the monarchical system before them. The religious authority feared that this might stir in them the will to revolt. So they forestalled this possibility by creating this belief, instilling and inculcating in their hearts carefully, that everything happens in the world only by the will of Allah. No one does anything by his own volition or of his free will. How can these kings dare do anything according to their wishes? They just cannot. They just seem vainly to act inspired and haughty before us only. But after all, what are they compared to the glory and majesty of Allah, for the simple reason that it is beyond them to do anything or act against his wishes. Therefore, everything that these kings do is all due to the will of Allah. Hence it is all a matter of fate, the taqdeer. It is not becoming or graceful for the god knowing to watch the arrow, they should always have their eyes on the archer. This belief in fate has made the monarchical hold more solid. Every wickedness and devilishness of theirs has now assumed the will of God against which no one dare speak. One fundamental change. As has been previously explained, religion is an individual's affairs, whereas deen is a collective and an organizational system. In other words, in religion individuals, in their own personal and particular way perform the religious rites and rituals in set varied ways. But in deen man's entire life is in obedience to a collective order. In modern phraseology it would be termed as state. That is, to act on deen it is necessary to have an independent state. In this state, only orders of deen i.e. only the laws of Allah would be proclaimed. The messenger was the first who set up such a state. According to the Quranic methodology. In such a state, with the exception of a few laws, all other issues are dealt within the given Quranic principles and all by laws or decisions made within their boundaries. These principles are unchangeable and unalterable for all times, but the rules and regulations, and laws made in its light are changeable in accordance with the times and need of the era. During the life of the Nabi Pbuh, this pattern of deen remained in action. This continued for some time even after his demise. This way was known as al-Minhaj Nabawath, the way of the Nabi, wherein athoth, obedience, of Allah and Rasul Pbuh, was not done by each according to his way but by the central authority of the state i.e. Khilafat-e Rashida, the pious successors, those companions of the Nabi who became his immediate successors, which proclaimed laws and devised regulations all within the Quranic principles. This was the process of athoth of God and Rasul Pbuh. During this entire period there was no other code or system of the state except the Quran. Nabi Muhammad gave the Quran in its complete, final, and fully compiled form to the Ummah, the ideological brotherhood. And this was the very Quran which was commonly spread and publicized by the Khilafat-e Rashida during their times. The Nabi Pbuh did not give any collection of hadith or tradition to the Ummah. Not only this, in fact he stressed and urged that nothing should be put down in writing with the exception of the Quran. If anyone had written it he should erase it. Even during the period of Khilafat-e Rashida there was no collection of hadith, or traditions. During the times of Omar, a very serious debate took place on the question that there should be some form of collection of the hadith. And this debate continued for 10 months, with a great deal of attention and contemplation. After which, Omar decided otherwise, explaining that when previous Ummahs included other collections with the Book of God, they were destroyed and ruined. When Caliphate turned into monarchy, the true picture of deen became distorted, and dualism came into existence. Politics came under the command and charge of the government while religious affairs were allowed to remain free. Since religious affairs were related to God and Rasul, the athoth of God and Rasul Pbuh began on individual basis. But then this question arose as to how to perform ethot of God and Rasul. Pbuh. It was initially agreed then that the worldly affairs be managed in obedience to the king, and obedience of God and Rasul could be done by obedience to the Book of God. Then they were further entangled by the issue that God could be obeyed by obedience to the book, but how was the ethot of Rasul Pbuh be carried out? It occurred in the minds of some individuals of compiling a history of the periods of Rasul Pbuh and the followers. The source material and contents of this history were to be the narratives handed down by word of mouth and which were current and in vogue and attributed to the Rasul. For the purpose of the ethot of Nabi, those narratives and sayings should be taken as commands of the Nabi, and to act according to them should be considered as ethot of Rasul Pbuh. This is how hadith traditions were collected and compiled. Narratives, sayings and their collections. These efforts were made after very many years of the passing away of the Rasul. Of these collections, the most authentic of them all is regarded to be the ones collected by Imam Bukhari. These were collected by him from 200 to 250 years later, after the demise of the Nabi. Imam Bukhari died in 256 AH. These collections were not compiled from some previous written records. They were collected by word of mouth. Any record that is compiled in this way, to what extent could it be authentic? It is evident that with it began the ongoing concoction and creating anew the narratives and sayings. And this was easy. On the other hand, if anyone tries to change, add, or subtract a single word from the Quran, then 1,000 voices all in unison will cry out in protest at such an outrage. This is so because the manuscript of the Quran, the protection of which Allah has taken on himself, is found everywhere. But of the talks or discourses about which there is no record to be found anywhere, then it would not be hard to make changes on it. Concocting of narratives and sayings. Consequently, coining and concoction of the sayings and narratives began. In what abundance and bulk they began to appear, may be ascertained from the following one single incident itself. Imam Bukhari wrote that he collected 600,000 hadith, of which he retained almost 6,000 as worthy of acceptance, and rejected the remaining 594,000. From among the 6,000, if a second article check is carried out again, and omissions and subtractions are deducted, then the number cannot remain more than 3,000. This is the story of just one major collection. The collections of other hadith were similarly and in the same manner compiled. Therefore, those sayings and narratives believed to be correct were eventually included in these collections. As for their authenticity, neither Allah nor Rasul gave any authority. What actually happened was that the collectors of the sayings and narratives accepted those which they, through their insight and judgment, thought to be correct, while the remaining ones were rejected. If it were to be understood about the relevant sayings and narratives that they were merely being attributed to acts and sayings of Rasul, and that these could be both the correct and the incorrect. And if the standard of judgment for the correct and the incorrect ones be the Quran, the narratives or sayings which go against the Quran could not be correct, because any of Rasul's respectable word or auspicious and blessed act would never be against the Quran. Then, too, it would have been good. But their belief and attitude in the matter was established thus. The faith and belief established about the sayings and narratives, they are equivalent to the Quran. This is the revelation form Allah, similar to the one angel Gabriel brought down as Quranic ayat. Its obedience is Rasul Allah's obedience. It is deen. It supersedes and cancels any order of the Quran that is contrary to it. Therefore, it must be understood that hadith can cancel the Quran. No sooner does an order of the Quran go contrary to the tradition, then it must be understood that the order of the Quran has been already cancelled by virtue of its contradiction. It is now up to you to determine as to what alien things must have entered through this medium, and in what sort of ways they must have transformed deen into religion. All this could have happened knowingly or unknowingly, on the part of the enemy. In any case, knowingly or unknowingly. The result of all this was that it became part of deen, and obedience to it became obedience to the Rasul. If you move a step further, then through these the exegesis of the Quran was formulated, thereby creating a situation wherein if someone says that in such and such case the Quran states thus, then the immediate retort was as to who understands the Quran more, you or Rasul. It is such an answer, against which no one dares move a lip. But the truth is that the exegesis, which is presented as being from Rasul, is in fact merely attributed to the Rasul, for which there is no authority or credentials. The practical result was that the entire Quran was subordinated to these sayings of Hadith. Now a religion revolved round the axis of Hadith, and Quran was left for the purposes of Savab through recitation. This is the religion that is in force for the last 1,000 years. Fiqh or jurisprudence. Some of our elders, exercising their judgment, solved some of their problems in the light of the needs of their times. These are called laws of fiqh. It is evident they were enforced as a temporary measure, or at least for the period they were meant for. With the changes in circumstances meant changes in those laws. But after some time this belief was created that all these laws of fiqh are unalterable, for all times. In the future, no one would have the right to exercise judgment to do otherwise. Tasawwuf or mysticism. In traditions, and fiqh some or the other form of certification was needed, no matter how vague. But after this began a move, which needed no authority to issue orders. This was kashfu ilm, an inspiration, or manifestation of divinity. If an elder says that he has learnt of a certain matter by kashf, which meant that the said elder either has direct and mutual conversation with God, or that he has laduni knowledge, i.e., knowledge that is God-given or inspired, and did not require any visible credentials, and is transmitted person to date. That is, on the one hand, Iman is the end or seal of Nabuwwat, but, on the other hand, claims of mutual conversation with God are also in vogue. Both in kashfu ilm, knowledge of laduni, it is envisaged that man not only has revelation but is also in direct and mutual conversation with God. They have Iman about the Rasul regarding the following. Order of Allah. 5. 67. Convey to all that what is being revealed to you. But together with this they also had Iman and belief that the Rasul did not openly convey the essence of deen to the world, but instead in a very secretive way transmitted it person to person, so that no other comes to know about it. This was tasawwuf or mysticism. In it, religion was all the more successful in its aim. Just as the basic belief of religion, the basic belief of mysticism is also that the worldly affairs are for the worldly. The religions decorate the hereafter. It has taken this belief to its zenith. It said kashf and miracles. The direct and mutual dialogue with God and the Rasul's knowledge of laduni and its heritage belong only to those who shun and detest the world and relinquish all attachment. The one in whom a speck of the worldly thought remains cannot tread this path. This conduct or school of thought has made monarchy go wholly unreigned. On this basis I have termed mysticism as the zenith of religion. On reaching here, the conception of deen does not remain even in its dimmest form. According to religion, aim of life is achieved through personal salvation, and from the mystic point of view, personal salvation, purification of soul, is achieved by the relinquishing of the world and its desires.